Bob Jones. I've spent most of the last 50 years of my life living in my head as an analytical left-brain computer programmer. I've written millions of lines of computer code, but frankly, who cares? About 25 years ago, I discovered that I had a heart and that I could feel feelings. I learned that my heart was much smarter than my head. My head can tell me whatever my ego wants to hear, but my heart will tell me truth. Almost 16 years ago, I discovered the Mankind Project and took their new warrior training adventure. I sat in a circle with other men and learned that I could speak from my heart. And I learned that speaking from my heart helped me connect with people much more effectively than speaking from my head. This started me down a path of developing emotional maturity. I'm still walking that path. I'm far from being as emotionally mature as either I or my wife want me to be, but I've made some progress in recent years. I became passionate about becoming a better man, a better person. What motivated me was a deep desire to break the pattern of judgment and abuse that I grew up with and that I carried into my own family. A wise counselor told me over 20 years ago about the Karpman Drama Triangle. Like all triangles, this triangle has 3 points. Each point plays a specific role in relationships. The first point at the bottom of the triangle is called the victim. The second point at the top left is called the persecutor. And the third point at the top right is played by the role of rescuer. Let me describe these roles a bit more fully. Whether we know it or not, most of us react to much of our lives as victims. Whenever we refuse to take responsibility for ourselves, we are unconsciously choosing to react as victim. This inevitably creates feelings of anger, fear, guilt, or inadequacy, and it leaves us feeling betrayed, taken advantage of by others. Lynn Forrest, who wrote the wonderful article, The Three Faces of Victim, calls the victim triangle a shame generator because through it, we are unconsciously reenacting painful life themes that create shame. This has the effect of reinforcing old painful beliefs that keep us stuck in these old patterns. Now, engineers like me love patterns, and I recognize this victim pattern in both my family of origin and in my own family. The pattern showed up way too often. I'd get angry about something and take on the role of persecutor. Donna, my wife, would defend herself from my anger. And in doing that, she became the persecutor. This required me to shift roles and become the victim. Here's another example you may recognize. In the 90s, I traveled a lot, and Donna was left at home with our 3 kids. They would act out, and she would say, "Well, wait till your father gets home." Anybody remember that one? Since I was already set up as the persecutor, I'd start disciplining the kids when I got home. But I was often tired and cranky after a long flight, so my frustration at both being set up as the persecutor and at not knowing a good way to discipline my kids often took me to anger. Now, my anger scared both Donna and the kids. She'd step in and rescue the kids from my wrath. Now I'm feeling set up and victimized by her rescuing, so I got even more angry. Want to see how this dance unfolds? I vividly remember my father and mother fighting, and I could sense that my mom was being attacked by my dad. I didn't have the words to describe it as a child, but mom was the victim and dad was the persecutor. Many years later, I realized that from my dad's perspective, he was the victim. Mom would do something that would just infuriate him, so he would have to teach her a lesson. And that's a classic example of the persecutor. What about the rescuer? That was usually my mom. Dad would get angry with me for something I did or didn't do, and mom would try to intervene and rescue me from dad's anger. Anybody want to guess how well that worked out? So we dance around this triangle, taking on first one role or another. Anybody recognize this pattern in your life? So what is this dance all about? In a single word, It's about blame. The persecutor wants to blame the victim. The rescuer blames the persecutor for attacking the victim. The victim blames everybody else for the current mess. So what's the deeper truth here? Nobody wants to own their part in creating the situation. What if the victim said, actually, nobody just wants to take responsibility? What if the victim said, I don't care what happened to me to get me into this mess, but here I am. Now, how do I deal with it? What if the persecutor said, I feel angry and hurt by what you just said or did, but I want you to know that I don't blame you for my anger? What if the rescuer said, I feel very uncomfortable with conflict and I want to stop hurting, but my discomfort has nothing to do with you? Can you feel the difference that taking personal responsibility for what's going on inside yourself can make in the quality of your relationships? Can you see the connection between taking responsibility and having deeper, more authentic relationships? Here's another example. How many of you have a boss who dumps additional work on you at the very last minute? What do you say to a boss like that? You just cave in and find yourself resenting your boss? What if you said to your boss, hey, great, I'll get right on that, but I want you to tell me which of these other tasks you've assigned me to you want me to delay. You understand, of course, that I can't do two things at once and give you the kind of quality I know you expect. How does that response resonate with you? Can you hear the boundary that's being set here? You'll do what the boss wants you to, but you require that the boss tell you what is most important. Incidentally, that is what the boss's job really is. The boss sets priorities. But since bosses are human, he or she maybe forgets that they've given you a half a dozen other assignments also due today. Your job is not to assume that you know which jobs are more important, but you can accomplish this by asking your boss to tell you what's most important. And in that dialogue, you are subtly telling your boss that he or she doesn't get to abuse you. In my ConneXions Intensive, we'll spend a lot of time working on the Karpman Drama Triangle. We'll help you recognize when you're on the triangle. It's probably much more often than you realize. We'll help you practice setting clear boundaries that will help you and allow you to take responsibility without blaming yourself or others. Learning to recognize that you're on the triangle and consciously choosing to stop blaming and start taking responsibility is one of the most important skills you can build. It will help you create deeper and more meaningful relationships with everybody in your life. I can say honestly that if I hadn't learned to grow up and take responsibility for my choices, I would not be married to the wonderful woman I've called my wife, partner, and best friend for the last 42 years. Learning to take responsibility has helped me deal with depression, job loss, getting conned by a true psychopath, and making hundreds or probably thousands of mistakes that I've made over the last years as parent, partner, and person. So now it's your turn. Do you recognize how much of your life you spend on the triangle? How does this idea of taking full responsibility for your life and your choices sound to you?